Juicy plums, sir. Juicy plums, sir. Juicy plums, sir.
Holidays can be murder on turkeys. Let's make this one for the birds.
My name is Robert Cheeke. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and I'm a vegan bodybuilder. I've been doing that for 15 years as a vegan and bodybuilding about 8 years. And it's been a great lifestyle for me, and that's what I do. Skinny kid. I was skinny, I was scrawny, and determined to get bigger and stronger. I was 120 pounds when I became vegan, and I asked this question, can I get bigger and stronger on a plant-based diet? Shouldn't I just keep eating meat, and even though I care about animals, eat meat and just get bigger and stronger, and then become vegan for animal rights or ethical reasons or moral reasons later on? And it was actually my older sister, Tanya, who said, you know what, you don't need to. You don't need to compromise one to get the other. You can still get protein, vitamins, amino acids, fatty acids, glucose, minerals, all these things essential for life in plant-based whole foods. And in fact, that's where they're found in abundance in their original form. I mean, you talk about, you don't go to a steak to get vitamin C. I mean, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, etc. come from fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains, seeds. So that's where nutrition comes from. People ask me, where do I get my protein? Well, I don't have like one source. I mean, it's not like I just eat one food for protein. I mean, to me, I understand the question, but it's also sometimes a silly question because protein is found in almost every food, or pretty much every food, in small amounts or larger amounts. And so I think the question is, which foods have more protein, or which foods have some of the best sources of protein? And from there, we can talk about hemp protein and pea protein and rice protein and nuts and grains like quinoa and seeds. And we can talk about green foods like kale and spinach and broccoli. And we can talk about tofu and tempeh. We can talk about almonds and walnuts, and all these things. And there's too many foods to name. So.
I'm here with Brenda Davis. She's a registered dietitian. Hi, Brenda.
Hello.
Yeah. Brenda, tell us about the talk you did. Summarize the talk, because you talked about vegan and vegetarian nutrition. Tell us about the myth of protein.
Okay, well, basically, a lot of people think that if you don't eat meat, you can't get enough protein. And the reality is you need about 10 to 15% of calories from protein. Most plant foods contain somewhere in that range. And if you do a mix of plant foods, well, the average vegan gets 11 to 14% of calories from protein. Pretty much bang on, not too much, not too little. And it's not the issue a lot of people think it is.
And what are the sources that people can use for protein, which aren't animal-based?
Yeah, the great sources are beans, like any kind of legumes, certainly nuts and seeds, and non-starchy vegetables are actually a fairly good source as well. The things that are low are the fruits and some of the starchy veggies. But if you're not eating a pile of fat and a pile of sugar, then you're eating all real food. And you're eating enough calories, then you're going to get enough protein.
Basically, you're saying if you have a healthy diet, which is varied, and you have enough calories, you're not going to be protein deficient.
Right on.
So tell us about the myth of calcium, because you say, well, to drink milk to have calcium, do you really need this?
Yeah, well, you don't need cow's milk any more than you need moose milk, to be honest with you. You need calcium, though. And that's a thing that we've learned. To have strong bones, it's important to have enough calcium. So the issue is where do you get it? And certainly cow's milk is a source, so is the milk of any mammal, but is it natural for people to be consuming that? There are all sorts of good calcium sources for vegans, and certainly you can drink fortified soy milk or fortified almond milk and get a good amount there. But the dark green leafy vegetables, the ones that are low in oxalic acid, like kale and broccoli and various Chinese greens, are an excellent source of calcium. Things like almonds, figs, blackstrap molasses, tofu made with calcium. There's all sorts of foods. And you know, the thing about in a vegan diet is there's calcium in almost everything you're eating. If you're not eating processed foods, there's calcium in everything. And you actually absorb calcium better when you're eating little bits of it throughout the day than one big bolus. And so vegans can do very, very well with calcium if they're conscious and if they're aware of the calcium sources.
Yeah, that's great. Tell us about pregnancy. You know, mothers out there who are pregnant right now be thinking, I don't know if it's safe to have a vegetarian or vegan baby.
Well, it's interesting because a good chunk of the world's population is actually vegetarian, even if it's not by choice. Yeah. And they seem to do reasonably well. We have a number of very good studies looking at vegetarians and vegans, and there really are no difference in terms of intelligence, in terms of size, in terms long-term with vegetarian children if people are feeding them adequate diets. The one issue that I would make people aware of if they're doing vegan especially is to make sure you get enough B12. It's reasonably easy to do, and get yourself a good, well, like one of the books I wrote was Becoming Vegan, and get yourself a good book that gives you some guidelines, and we provide guidelines for pregnancy, lactation, infancy, etc. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Thanks.
Oh, you're very welcome.
High cholesterol, high blood pressure, heart attacks. Tonight, make it vegetarian.